That sounds ominous. Now we will begin recording. Good morning. I want to thank Martin DiAgostino for the invitation to be with you all today. I love giving guest sermons. Even if I'm no good, you'll be nice. Tell me I was really great, and I won't be here next week, and you can blame Martin. The psalmist said, Zeh hayom asa Adonai negila v'simcha vod. This is the day that God has made. Let us rejoice and celebrate. And I say, in the midst of all the craziness around us, we still have much to celebrate. We can end chronic homelessness. Homelessness doesn't have to be a common or normal. We've created systems that make it ordinary. As people of conscience, we can create new systems that make it rare and infrequent. As mentioned, I'm the director of GIMA, the Greater Indianapolis Multi-Faith Alliance, and we are an advocacy organization, yet our primary focus is relationships, not knowing about each other, but knowing each other. We call them sacred friendships. My maxim is we love each other because of our differences, not in spite of them. And then we use those relationships to advocate for our most vulnerable neighbors. Our issue is housing, specifically the evictions and homelessness crises in Indianapolis, and they are crises. Someone asked me, how'd you get into housing advocacy? And my answer was, I didn't have any choice. The story is that in 2019, a group of some 90 faith leaders gathered at the Interchurch Center to pick a social justice issue for this newly forming organization that would become GIMA. Everything was on the table, from food insecurity, gun violence, you name it. The winner with no close second was evictions. It's no coincidence. Matthew Desmond's book, Evicted, came out shortly before that. It doesn't show Indianapolis in a good light for good reason. The rankings haven't been updated in quite a while, but at the time we were second in the country in total evictions, not per capita, total, only outpaced by New York City. Today we're likely fourth or fifth, but not because evictions are going down here, it's because the rest of the country is catching up to us. So I began drinking from the fire hose that is housing and its issues, and I've learned housing is the number one social determinant of health. Housing affects physical health, mental health, crime, security, and social well-being. I learned that evictions and homelessness are part of the same systemic problems, and in Indianapolis, evictions are a direct pipeline to homelessness. We believe housing is a human right. Not so in America, and Indiana is worse than almost every other state. In a recent sermon, my friend Pastor Matt Landry stated, "We have lost our prophetic imagination." I think that's brilliant, and I think he's right. Rather than engaging with the world, we seem to be shrinking from it. Rather than directing our energies outside, we retreat and focus inside. I believe we, as principled people of faith, must take our power and our obligation back to face the challenges of our most vulnerable neighbors. Friends, we, people of good faith, good conscience, integrity, whatever you want to call it, are the only community who have the moral and ethical mandate to help those with less. We are commanded to see God in each other, to love our neighbor as ourselves, to vanguard the cause of the widow and the orphan, to welcome the stranger in our midst, and yet we've ceded that responsibility to secular nonprofits and government. While I know many in the social justice work world care deeply, we are the only ones who are commanded to do this work. Deuteronomy 15:7 says, "If there is a needy person among you, one of your kin, in any of your settlements in the land that your God is giving you, do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kin. Rather, you must open your hand and lend whatever is sufficient to meet the need. Some translations use member of the community instead of kin. But the Hebrew uses the word achecha, whose root is ach, brother, kin, relative. We are not members of a community, we are members of a family, and commanded to take care of each other in whatever way is sufficient to meet the need. A Hasidic story. A pious, well-known, but poorly dressed rabbi took a lengthy train ride to a town far away. He was subject to insult and verbal abuse from a fellow in his train car. When the train finally came to a halt, the Rebbe came off the platform to thousands of excited disciples who waited his arrival. The fellow in his car looked mortified as he stood beside the rabbi and said, "I'm so ashamed. I had no idea who you were. Please accept my apologies." The Rebbe turned to him and said, "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to everyone else. When you insulted me, you did so because I was everyone else." Shortly following that in Deuteronomy, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice, you shall pursue. My faith demands that I not only do justice, but that I be justice. Not very good English. So what's the difference between doing and being justice? Why does it say justice twice? Because the ethic of justice, the concept, must be followed by the acts of justice, the second justice. And it says you shall pursue, not you can, might, could, should. It says you will. In your scriptures, James says, faith without works is dead. There are by far more references to tending to the poor, the needy, the widow, the orphan, the least of us, the stranger, the other, than any other theme in the Bible. By far. It's pretty clear here. And I've yet to come across one that gives a requirement or a prerequisite for receiving that help. There are no qualifications for being human, for being a child of God. Reverend Dr. King wrote, "When I speak of love, I'm not speaking of some sentimental and weak response. I'm speaking of that force which all the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying force of life. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality." Dr. King says that love is not some sentimental and weak response. It's what we do naturally. And if I see those in need as my family, I must love them as my family. It doesn't say I have to like them, though. Martin Buber, the late 19th century philosopher, theologian, existentialist, and for me, a chassid, a pious man, said, and I'm paraphrasing, we have two kinds of relationships as humans. Those that acknowledge the humanity in others and those that don't. He called them I, it, I, thou. The I, it relationship is transactional. I stand in the grocery line, the clerk checks me out, I pay, move on. The I, thou relationship, the relational in that same example, I stop, I look the clerk in the eye, and I say, hi, and thank you. And Buber says, in that moment of relational acknowledgement is where I experience God. And in this moment of relationship and loving kindness, I am being justice as I experience the divine. Again, it's in our relationships that we experience the love that Dr. King spoke of, that supreme unifying principle of life. Dr. King said that love lies at the heart of all major religions, and violence and conflict are not a result of religious differences, but of the fact that too many people have been religious in their creeds and not in their deeds. King believed that religion has the power to play a major role in establishing peace and justice if we would only follow our inherent ethical teachings. It is possible to act deeds on our values, creeds, but it's hard. If it sounds daunting, well, it is. None of the prophets said, and this will be easy. Justice is hard, and it's our legacy and our responsibility. The very action we can take, the very first action we can take, is to treat the least among us with the human dignity that our traditions demand, and that we show the same grace and love to our brothers and sisters of other faiths, cultures, lifestyles, and beliefs with civility and with love. And friends, our homeless family members demand our love and attention no less. They are caught up in a system that sees them as data points and not children of God. There is no justice for them as we put unreasonable demands between them and full lives. In a conversation with a city leader a couple years ago, he lectured me about why people remain homeless. We give them housing for 6 months, they don't get a job, and they end up back on the street. My snarky response was, so it's their fault, we can't help them. The conversation was over. Streets to Home Indy is different than any historical attempt to end homelessness, not just manage it, in Indianapolis history. What makes it unique is that it is not a city program. It's a public-private collaborative between the city, civic, business, philanthropy, and faith communities. In fact, the city's role isn't primary, and it's only 1/3 of the funding for the first year. We will house and provide services for 350 of our most vulnerable, unhoused neighbors, our family members, by June of 2026, and more extraordinarily, to do so with $0 federal dollars. Every other city that succeeded in bringing chronic homelessness to statistical zero, Milwaukee, Houston, Newark, New Orleans, Raleigh, relied on federal vouchers to sustain their programs. There are no new vouchers, and the federal government is moving to lessen the number that already exist. We must do this with private money. And I'll tell you that the rest of the country is watching Indianapolis because they find themselves in this same uncharted territory. And I can say with absolute assurance, if it weren't for the faith community, this would not be happening. Our relentless pursuit of justice has shown that we are an organized, unified force to be reckoned with, and half-hearted measures are unacceptable. GEMA took on the faith community fundraising campaign with a goal of $270,000, a tithe of the $2.7 million coming from the philanthropy community. To date, we've collected $458,000, with remaining pledges a little over $90,000. We exceeded our goal, and it's not enough. We cannot stop. We cannot stop. Funding phase 1 is just the start. Our goal is permanently housing 1,400 families. We need your dollars, and we need you engaged. I know that when things get hard, and it will get hard, the system's response has been to step back. We must be that clear moral and ethical authority that demands justice for our family members. We are the people to solve the social ills of the world, and we can put our creeds into deeds. It's not easy, but really is simple. We can do hard things, and we can end chronic homelessness in Indianapolis. The Talmud teaches, Lo alacha hamlacha ligmor, it is not your duty to repair the world, but neither are you free to sit and do nothing. I don't have to solve it all, but I must do what I can, however small, to make a difference. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru. Amen. May the one who brings peace to the heavens bring peace to the world and to all of humanity, and let us all say, Amen. Thank you.